Hi everyone, my name is Piana and welcome to my video. So a funny thing happened the other day. I was looking through my book collection and I realised I own 2 books, both about cows running away to India to flee the meat industry, both written by men called David. Do Davids have a particular affinity with cows? If you're a David, please leave a comment. I would like to know. So yeah, I decided to read them. The first book I read is Holy Cow by David Duchovny. Yes, the same David Duchovny who was in X-Files. Legend would have it that he and his co-star were both lizard people wearing human skin, which is why their expressions never changed. But regardless of what I think of David #1's acting skills, that doesn't mean that he is a bad writer. So let's give this a go. This book is entirely told from the point of view of Elsie, a cow who grew up on a farm and where she had a rather happy life, just being a cow in a field with her friends and the rest of the farm animals. One night she decides to break out of her enclosure and goes to see the TV in the human home, where she discovers the meat industry and where her mother disappeared off to. She also finds out that cows are worshipped in India, so she decides to go there, along with a Jewish pig who believes that his life will be better in Israel, and a turkey who wants to go and live in Turkey because he thinks that because the country is named after him. This book makes no fucking sense at any point. The weird thing is, David #1 kind of knows this. There's this passage at the end where he says that it's been brought to his attention, presumably by beta readers, that there are a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense, including the fact that Elsie is milked even though she's never had a baby, and he claims that this is Elsie because she's the one writing, embellishing the story, as it were. This is gonna be quite a long video. So my first issue with this book is that Elsie is the most annoying character ever. Think of the most obnoxious, self-centered, bratty, superior, idiotic, snobby teenager. Multiply that by 1,000, that's Elsie. She starts off by talking about how animals don't see the world in the same way, that Mother Nature created all creatures for a reason, and there's a very careful balance, and that they're not angry with, like, say, the fox that comes into the hen pen to steal eggs because they understand that the fox needs the eggs for its babies, and blah, and blah, and blah. But this is completely contradicted by the fact that she judges absolutely everything. Like, absolutely everything. She makes fun of kangaroos for their accents, pigs for being like ranty or whatever. Basically everything she comes across, she judges in a really mean way. So she's a hypocrite. There's this scene where she's being milked, even though she establishes that she's never had babies, so how's she producing milk then? Yeah. So she's being milked by this 17-year-old boy who is one of the children of the family who owns the farm, and he's obviously bored. He doesn't want to be there. He wants to be somewhere else, but he has to do this because reasons. And he's looking at stuff on his phone. Elsie is always banging on about how all the humans are always looking at their phones, like, oh my god, they're so stupid. So she knocks the phone out of his hand into a cow pie and then takes the piss out of him. Why? This kid was just bored and looking at his phone. Like, he wasn't even hurting her or anything. He was just being bored and trying to entertain himself. Elsie is just being mean. For no reason other than she wants to. Which happens a few times in this book. Yeah, she also has a massive superiority complex. The other really annoying thing is just the way the book is written. Like, she is always trying to build up suspense, I guess, of being like, oh wait, I'm gonna tell you this really amazing thing and you're gonna be amazed, like, as a reader, and it's gonna be in the next chapter, and then it's not in the next chapter, and then I got about 6 chapters in before, like, nothing happens. It's just her being like, oh, aren't I a clever writer? Like, you're not, you're just really annoying. The scene where she finds out about the meat industry is actually kind of well written, because she makes a link between what she's seeing on the screen and a horror movie, which I guess would kind of be the case if you were a cow and you were capable of understanding what's on the screen. Yeah, it would be a horror movie, only real. She goes back to tell her friend, who's just been with a bull for the first time, and obviously is talking about how not even amazing it was, just weird. The bulls are so also, like, really, really annoying. They're like the caricatural guys at high school who play in the football team and, like, don't have a lot of brain cells, but they're really, like, muscle toned because they're really good at sport. They're like those. Only Elsie was like, animals aren't supposed to behave like humans, so why are they behaving like human teenagers? I don't get it. Elsie's friend ends up being pregnant, and despite Elsie telling her about the meat industry and what's going to happen to her and what's probably going to happen to her baby, she decides to stay at the farm. I thought it was nice that there was a contrast between Elsie, who absolutely wants to leave and go to India so that she can live a happy life where she doesn't risk being slaughtered, and her friend, who kind of accepts that her life, they also have a pretty good life on this farm. Like, to be honest, they're not being mistreated or anything. They get to go out in the field. They even get to, like, have their babies with them in the field. Most, like, big farms take the calves away from the mothers when they're born, so the cows produce more milk. So yeah, this farm is really nice. Elsie breaks into the human's home and reads a bunch of books in the children's bedrooms. Like, how did they not notice that a cow had broken into their home? Like, cows are big animals. Even if she wasn't there when they came home, they would have noticed. So yeah, she reads a bunch of books. Like, she can turn pages with her hooves. There's a moment in the story where I think there are all these, like, passages jumping back and forth between her telling the story and her talking to her book editor, and her editor's like, oh, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot if you do that, and Elsie's like, I don't have opposable thumb, so I can't shoot, but she can turn pages in a book, and also somehow she knows how to read. Like, what? And none of this is explained, by the way. But yeah, she finds out that cows are considered deities in India, so she decides to go there along with the pig who joins her. And oh my god, like, a Jewish pig? I mean, I don't really know anything about Jewish religion, but this just seems disrespectful to me. Pigs are considered unclean animals to Jews and Muslims. Kosher exists, so I don't know. I just felt weird about that. And then there's the turkey, who spends most of the novel looking at shit on his phone. Even though Elsie was like, well, animals don't need to look at phones because we're so much better. What? So anyway, they get to the airport and put on human clothes to pass as human beings. This was one of the things that David, like, noted as having been pointed out to him as being incoherent. This is the one bit that I will give him the benefit of the doubt for. Now, I live in Normandy and there's cows absolutely everywhere. Honestly, I don't think anyone would bat an eyelid if a couple of cows just walked into a supermarket. It would probably take people at least a couple of minutes to be like, hold on. So a cow wearing human clothes would probably go unnoticed. It made me laugh because it kind of reminded me, I don't know if you remember those, like, old cartoons that used to be, like, going on everywhere in the 90s, and stuff like Denver, when Denver, like, was a dinosaur, and they would just put a coat and a hat on him, and they'd be like, this is our friend. And yeah, he's totally human, by the way, and everyone would be like, okay. And you know, it was just even watching this as like a 5-year-old, I was like, how are you this stupid? Like, how do you, that's a fucking dinosaur, how can you not see it? So this kind of reminded me of that. There was a kind of childish naivete to that, which I thought was quite sweet. I'll talk about that a bit more later. They get to the airport and they board a bunch of planes to go to Turkey, then Israel, then India. I think they get to Turkey, and then the turkey who desperately wants to fly steals a plane, a private jet, and then they fly to Israel. Again, planes need permission to take off. This one definitely didn't have it. Someone would have been notified, but whatever. So they arrive in Israel, where the pig discovers that he's not very welcome. Oh yeah, he also gets circumcised. Like, I don't know how you pronounce this. This is the person who circumcises babies. How on earth this very much Jewish religious person accepted to do this on a pig? Again, multiple shades of disrespect, but whatever. So they get to Israel, and the pig obviously isn't very welcome there. So they start throwing stones at them, and then they meet this camel who apparently was the model for the Camel cigarette brand. So he's all like doing all these poses because like he thinks he's really famous and that. Okay. And then the turkey, who is now improvising himself as a psychologist, like starts talking to the camel, and apparently he needs a paradigm shift. So he tells him that like being a model for cigarettes is wrong, so he should be like trying to campaign for something positive. And the camel's like, you're completely right. What have I done with my life? Well, that was easy. And then both Jews and Muslims start attacking the pig, and the camel starts talking to them. It was established earlier on in the book that the animals couldn't talk to people. Like, there's this scene in the airport where there's this woman talking to Elsie, and she can't answer her, but the camel can talk to people. How does this work? I'm trying to understand you. I'm trying. David number 1 contradicts his own rules within his novel. So the camel's like, hey, Jews and Muslims, you both hate pigs, so unite yourselves in the hatred of pigs, because you're both the same. So he solves the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by uniting Jews and Muslims over their shared hatred of pigs. That's all it takes, apparently. Has anyone ever tried that? So then they fly off again and they get to India. And when they get to India, Elsie's like, wow, this is amazing. Everyone loves me and flowers and blah. And then they meet a bunch of other Hindi cows and they're all like, yeah, you're not the same as us because discrimination. And Elsie decides to go back to wherever and write a book about it. And that's it. Okay, so there are several themes in this book. The number 1 theme obviously being the cruelty of the meat industry. And this like happens a number of times in the novel. Like obviously Elsie discovering this on TV, her trying to convince her friends to leave, them all leaving to have a better life for themselves, and her feeling guilty about having participated with her milk. The problem I have with this though is it's presented in a way that just makes it seem like pointless horror, and I don't really understand what the actual message is behind it. Is it that we shouldn't be eating meat? Is it that the whole meat industry needs to change? What is the message? Like, it's absolutely not clear. Is it that all animals should be away from farms or free? Like, what's the message behind this? I don't really understand. The second theme is obviously that animals exist on a higher plane of psychology or thinking or whatever than humans do, but this again falls completely flat because the characters behave like humans or even worse than humans. And again, there's the thing about the phone at the beginning, and then the turkey's on his phone all the time, so what's the point of being like, oh, phone's bad, when actually one of the characters are then going to be led to depend on a phone for information and travel. The other one that I thought was absolutely hilarious was that when Elsie is looking through the window at the TV and the humans are all watching TV, she's like, oh, they're all watching this box, and like, it's so just weird, they're all mesmerized, and so very much criticizing the just humans watching TV and spending. It doesn't even specify the amount of time they're spending watching TV, it's just they're watching TV, and that's wrong. David Duchovny made his fortune out of being an actor in TV shows. Don't bite the hand that feeds you, David.
Pourquoi t'es déguisé en palmier?
Je vais mettre ça dedans.
Je sais, pour ça.
Je vais mettre ça.
Que ça enregistre.
Ah, tu peux rester, mais fais pas de bruit. Elsie likes to sandwich into every single chapter something about her having a discussion with her editor. And again, how does she communicate with her editor? Because it's been established that she can't talk to humans. Has she learned how to talk at some point? Did the camel teach her? I'm trying to understand you. I'm trying. The weird one in this is that she makes it clear that her editor made her watch a bunch of movies and a bunch of TV shows so that she could reference human entertainment throughout her book because it was aimed at humans. Okay. The weird thing about this is she makes references to movies and shows and music throughout the novel, but the weird thing is these references also turn up in dialogue. So at a point where she wouldn't have known about any of these references, there's a scene where her best friend references West Side Story. There's a scene where Elsie's having like an imaginary conversation with her dead mother, and her dead mother references Star Wars and music and other movies and songs. And I'm like, okay, it makes sense that she would reference this stuff, you know, in her writing or descriptions, or to make a metaphor or whatever, but the fact that this stuff turns up in dialogue just takes away any kind of credibility. Again, just does not make sense at all. So even though David #1 claims that Elsie likes to embellish stuff, I just think it's strange to basically say that and show that all of this is a lie and all of this is made up when it's trying to make some kind of point about the meat industry. It basically does just strip away any kind of credibility this could have had. So the one thing I thought that it may kind of sort of had going for it was what I was talking about earlier on, is the childish fairy tale aspect of it, which comes up a few times. She references fairy tales, especially when she's read the books in the child's bedroom. She talks about, oh, there's a story where a cow jumps over the moon. I have seen cows jumping, and believe me, they can jump pretty high. So again, I can totally believe that a cow can jump over the moon. I think they just choose not to, because they want us to think they're dumb. As someone who spent a lot of time around cows, I don't think David #1 has taken the right angle about this at all. But that's just me. And as I said, David acknowledges a lot of the flaws in this novel, including the one about Elsie being pretty overbearing and just rambling on all the time and being an annoying, obnoxious, superior character. But I don't understand, like, if you acknowledge this, why would you write her this way? Unless he thinks it's funny? Like, is this his idea of a funny character? It's just not. It's like the scene with the phone and the kid. It's just not funny. And there's another scene that's even worse than that one, where she headbutts the smallest child of the family farm because she's angry about the meat industry. So the kid comes in and the kid's just being really nice and he's stroking her and he's being really sweet, and she just headbutts him like the meat industry is not the fault of a 9-year-old child. This makes no sense. You would think an animal who is prepared to forgive a fox for killing chickens would be capable of forgiving human beings for killing cows for their own purposes of eating, but apparently not. And it's this kid's fault, so he gets head-butted in the face. Being head-butted by a cow hurts. It's never happened to me personally, and I hope it never does. But yeah, they've got pretty hefty skulls on them. And the last thing is, Elsie just doesn't change at all during this novel. Like, I can kind of excuse her behaviour of, like, obnoxious teenager at the beginning because she is a teenager, so it doesn't make sense that she would behave like one, because animals aren't supposed to behave like humans within the context of this novel, even though they totally do, because reasons. But there's no character development whatsoever. Like, she starts off by being annoying and ignorant and naive, and she, as a writer, in her present voice, is still obnoxious and annoying and superior and naive. And I don't understand what the purpose of this book is, other than David #1 just wanted to write a funny-ish book about a cow. And if that was the sole purpose, he failed. Also, the war in Israel thing, like, oh my god, why? Just why? Just leave that kind of thing alone, especially with books like this. Just ugh. Anyway, that was Holy Cow by David Duchovny, and it's a book which definitely deserves its name because it's pretty much what this is. So yeah, I was very unimpressed, and after chapter 2 I knew that I was going to be ranting about this, so yeah. 2 hours of my life I'm not getting back, plus the time it took me to film this video. I will be reading the other book, which is, in French, The Fabulous Destiny of a Cow Who Didn't Want to Finish as a Steak. And the original title in German is just Moo. And it's written by David Safier, or David #2. So yeah, I'll be reading this at some point in the future. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Do leave me a comment, leave me a thumbs up, tell me what you thought. If you've read this book, did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was an insult to Jewish culture? Share your thoughts and opinions with everyone so we can see. And don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.